Hello, welcome to another show of New Hampshire Citizens for Progress. It's been almost a year now since we did a show on Gulf of Maine wind power. We have the same guests that we had at that point. I'll introduce them and bring us up to speed of what's gone on a little bit, but mostly what we have to do moving forward and where we're at right now. I have Doug Bogen here from the Seacoast Anti-Pollution League. Doug's been active for over a decade promoting wind power. And Doug.
Yes, I'd like to provide a bit of introduction perhaps and some history of this effort from a grassroots perspective, from environmentalist view. And again, it really started about a decade ago. Environmentalists started hearing about the potential for offshore wind, and we were specifically interested in how we could replace our aging fossil fuel power plants as well as the nuclear plant on our shore, Seabrook. So we're looking for, coming up with thousands of megawatts, and it was just right at the end of 2009 that a couple of different reports came out, both from the federal energy department as well as the state of Maine put out a report showing that there was huge potential, specifically in the Gulf of Maine, but throughout the East Coast, and in the Gulf of Maine in particular. They said we could get up to 150,000 megawatts, which is just this huge number. That's theoretical if you build wind farms from one end to the other. And it was announced that it would be enough to replace 100 nuclear plants. So that really got my attention. And subsequent studies have narrowed that figure some, but we're still looking at many times the existing demands of all of New England, really, for that matter, not just New Hampshire and Maine. So that got our attention, and we started advocating for this. Meanwhile, there were efforts in the southern New England area, much ahead of us, to identify specific locations where offshore wind could be developed, and state and federal and local authorities got together and they set up a intergovernmental task force back then, and identified a very large area south of the Cape, south of Martha's Vineyard, that would be amenable to offshore wind development. But in the northern New England area, really nothing had been happening as yet, except in the state of Maine, where they did identify the potential. They actually set a goal of 5,000 megawatts of power from offshore wind, which is basically double what the peak demand in the state of Maine is. But certainly much of that would be sent south, where there's greater demand for electricity, of course. So we began an effort to encourage interest in New Hampshire. We put together a petition to the governor. We held a big rally at the State House. I requested a legislative study be done back in 2013 that did pass and was completed in 2014. And the upshot of that, the outcome of that was that they recommended that the governor request an interstate task force for New Hampshire. This has to be done through the governor's office. It involves the federal agencies as well as state and local officials. Unfortunately, when that got to the governor's attention, it was an election year and many other factors intervened, so the governor did not act at that time. So we realized we needed to make a larger grassroots effort, and we started contacting local governmental bodies, the city councils, town councils, board of selectmen, and we over 2017, 2018, we got 20 different cities and towns to enact resolutions or sense that they would request the governor act part of this task force. And it was another year before the task force actually formed, subsequently setting up a state commission to look at it as well. So I think I'll stop there and pass it on to others of the panel.
Okay, thank you, Doug. We have two other people here with us. One's on remote as well. So I'm going to go to Joe Casey, and I have him introduce himself and what he's doing right now briefly, and then we'll be diving into where we're at, what's going on, and what are the biggest concerns and where we go from here. Hello, Joe.
Good morning, good afternoon, Rick. Yeah, thanks for having me. My name's Joe Casey. I am an international representative with the IBEW, International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, and I am focused on business development in the 6 New England states. That's my assignment, that's my job, that's what I've been working on for the last few years. And since this is about offshore wind, I have been engaged down in Massachusetts, as they have aggressively been pursuing or procuring some offshore wind RFPs through the state legislature and the state CEC. I've been working with non-traditional relationships in Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, community college systems, organized labor, environmentalists, politicians. Everyone's involved, and it's an exciting time as these states all position themselves to procure offshore wind as a substantial energy source for their regions and their states. A lot of it is, as Doug mentioned, to replace, some of the traditional fossil fuel CO2 emitting generation facilities that they have. I don't know if I'm quite on board as he is with the replacement of nuclear power, but that's for a different day. But certainly these states are being aggressive, and they're starting to build up these task force, and a lot of companies have come into the state. Boston is a huge hub for the offshore wind industry. Everybody that's anybody is within a mile radius down there in the city, as far as development and the real players that came over from Europe that are in the game. And I've been working with them and just trying to get things going, down there. And as a native of New Hampshire, I'm from Rochester. I'm pretty excited to start this process here in New Hampshire.
Well, if people aren't aware of it, I'm going to just, the European markets in basically the third phase now. They've already done their installation of the offshore wind. They've already gone through decommissioning of almost all that first development, and they had been installing the new replacements for the offshore wind that they've decommissioned. So I'd like to introduce our next guest, Mike Burnham from Clean Energy New Hampshire. He's just taken a new responsibility, and I'll let him introduce himself and say what he's doing now. Hello, Mike, you there?
I'm here, Rick. Yeah, thank you. It's good to be with everybody today. I appreciate this discussion and would like to delve a bit into what New Hampshire specifically is doing to try and create some infrastructure and support so that we can really maximize the opportunities of this industry within the state and leverage what resources we do have and specific skills, and specifically focused on the Gulf of Maine waters. And building off of what Doug had said before in terms of where we are currently in the state for that infrastructure. A couple of key things happened this year following that first BOEM meeting. Just before the BOEM meeting, the governor had released an executive order that was identifying and noting the benefits and opportunities within offshore wind, and the creation of 4 specific executive advisory boards that were to focus on topics that were key to this industry and where New Hampshire really needed to dive in some more and gain understanding, as well as provide the public opportunity to participate. To date, those are still awaiting and pending sort of creation, but that is currently an item that did come out even before certain legislation that I'll mention in a second, and that we're still hoping to help support what capabilities we have within the state. A major factor, however, that did come out at the beginning of the New Hampshire legislative session in 2020 was a bill introduced by Dover Senator David Waters, under originally Bill 668. What that was to do is create a two-pronged support effort out of the legislature, one being the creation of a commission to effectively investigate and in parallel with BOEM study study particular areas that BOEM was in need of, study economic development opportunities within the state, looking at specific areas like supply chain development needs, port capabilities, workforce development, the potential of procuring energy from these systems, along with, in that same category, transmission needs and storage, and then finally, certainly of significant importance, fisheries and sort of the marine environment and how this development may or may not impact that side of the equation. So certainly, impacted by COVID in terms of the way the legislature operated, but in July, a omnibus bill was passed that did include this legislation. In addition, I apologize, the second prong of this legislation is the creation of an Office of Offshore Wind Development within the state's Business and Economic Affairs Department. That would be sort of a key contact point for a lot of the moving pieces within this industry, as well as for the industry itself and businesses, but for the public and for every item in between that. That unfortunately, within that package, that office was not funded, but it has effectively been created through the passage of the legislation, and so we're sort of awaiting future budget opportunities to be able to provide that resource. Specifically back to the commission quickly, that commission has now met twice and does include numerous legislators within the state, key administrative positions that focus on the Department of Environmental Services, again, the Business and Economic Affairs Department. There's a Public Utilities Commission representative, and a host of others. There's about 24 total members of that are convened specifically with the duties of focusing on some of those items I mentioned before: supply chain development, harbor and port-specific needs, how we prepare ourselves to position New Hampshire in a very significant way, interconnection needs in order to onshore that power. A key item that will also be looked at that has driven markets to our south is the procurement of energy. A lot of those markets, the states themselves have come out and said, we would like to procure X amount of megawatts or gigawatts of power. And that has frankly driven the creation of the market and the industries to come to those locations because they feel more comfortable that they have their off-taker of that power and therefore can build around that assurance. We have not reached that point here in New Hampshire, but we are going to strongly consider it. But in the interim as well, the workforce and the build-out of the workforce that will be able to supply these developers with the needed labor to develop these these projects, do it quickly, do it correctly, and get that power flowing. That's going to be a major item within New Hampshire, as well as we figure out exactly what those needs are from the developers. So there is currently, for some level of understanding, how much power we're talking about. About 9 gigawatts of power to our south has already been agreed to and contract signed. So this industry is fully on its way to being developed, and we'll put aside for now some of the hiccups, if you will, that have been experienced to date in not seeing projects under construction yet. But those agreements are in place, and there's another 14 gigawatts that are proposed and desired to be developed by 2030. So this is an enormous amount of power, enormous amount of opportunity, and with a price point, lowest price point that has been seen to date occurred in Massachusetts for what's called the Mayflower Wind Project. That proposal was for 5.8 cents. So very competitive from that cost perspective, and we're only beginning to kind of see how low that can go. But we do feel that this is, you have an opportunity for more affordable power, job creation, in consideration and important consideration of environmental impacts, both in RC but also noted before, climate change impacts, and getting large-scale renewables onto the New England grid. So with that, I'll stop and we can explore digging into some of the specific subjects.
What are your concerns in regards to this Gulf of Maine wind power?
So, I mean, specific concerns as we move forward with this actually exciting venture, which I am 100% in favor of. My concerns are the local workforce and the workers in the state of New Hampshire are being bypassed and not having the opportunity to get the training that they need and they can get. So first of all, we're a long way off from putting anybody out to work on any significant wind farm in the Gulf of Maine, and which gives us plenty of time to train our workers, right? So in generation today in the state of New Hampshire, those are some of our best jobs, right? And if these jobs are going to ultimately be eliminated and replaced with offshore wind, these people have specific skills that there's a reason why these are some of the best jobs, because they're fantastic workers in a fantastic workforce, and transitioning them to this offshore wind environment, be union, non-union, where they're working, whatever plants they're at or facilities they're at, if they're in generation, they should have an opportunity to work on this. And we should have the infrastructure in place so that we can train them specifically to work in the offshore wind capacity if that's what they want to do. And, up and down the eastern seaboard, organized labor and state community college systems or in private industry, they're all trying to work together to try to, take the traditional training that you have. When you're building these wind farms, you're going to have electrical work, you're going to have iron work, you're going to have pile driving, you're going to have all kinds of construction, and then at the end of it, you're going to have operation and maintenance that, is not what it is today and when we have operation and maintenance in our facilities. So to train this workforce is the biggest hurdle that we're going to have. And these companies that from Europe, right, so they have a trained workforce. And we have, seasoned veterans that work in the ocean down on the Gulf Coast. And right now all the talk is, European workers taking and starting this work and using, if we're going to use U.S. workers, we used our seasoned veterans from the Gulf Coast. It was mentioned the other day at our first commission meeting by one of the professionals, and it makes sense, right? I don't want to see that. I want to see the New England states that are procuring this energy and making the commitments and the ratepayers that are paying it to have the opportunity to work on these jobs. And we have, organized labor. A lot of people don't know. In the IBEW, we have training facility right here in the state of New Hampshire that is absolutely perfect for this. The carpenters, they train pile drivers, absolutely perfect for this. But we need to be involved, and we want to be able to work with union, non-union, whoever we have to work with to try to get these jobs specifically for New Hampshire. I would be happy if they were non-union, but they were New Hampshire people. We just need to take full advantage of this. There are, specific training courses. They call it GWO, which is the Marine certification that you need. That we can start working on now and making people, find out if they can work in this environment and whether or not they can work out there. There are high, we can build towers so they can see if they can get the high time that they need, and if they're suitable, and if they're going to be able to work in that. I find it really hard to believe that people that live in Europe and people that live in the Gulf Coast have some certain genetics that we don't have up here, that we can't work on the water in the ocean or get trained. And especially with the amount of time that we have available before we're going to be working out there, to get people implemented to the water, to whether or not they're going to be sick out there or what have you, and we can do it. And I just want to make sure that these jobs, anything that's procured from New Hampshire is New Hampshire people working on it. Anything that, if we can get, companies to locate to New Hampshire because of our skilled workforce, that those workers are the ones that are actually working on this stuff. And it's an exciting time, but we have to be careful, and we all want to work together and make sure that we do not, to coin a phrase, miss the boat.
Thank you, Joe. Mike, you're kind of wearing a couple hats here. You're the vice chair of this new commission, and you're the business development officer for Clean Energy New Hampshire. What are your concerns here?
Yeah, I think Joe absolutely hits on an extremely important point, that if New Hampshire wants to participate and most effectively participate, we have to focus on workforce development. It's a critical issue, so that we are ready and starting now to meet those needs of this industry. And there's a number of steps that still need to happen. We do need BOEM in that task force to continue to work towards identifying leasable sites in the Gulf of Maine, so that developers know where there's even opportunity to put these developments. We need to create a New Hampshire business registry of existing businesses that could work in similar to labor that Joe mentioned, that can work with this industry and really benefit from this new opportunity. We also need to look at how to best utilize our port infrastructure. And we do have a significant opportunity to be able to utilize those existing ports within the Portsmouth area to benefit the development and operation and maintenance of this industry when it really gets going. Additionally, we're going to be dealing with a new technology most likely in the Gulf of Maine, which will be floating. Floating wind technology is behind some of the fixed bottom type of technologies that are being built out to our south, but this creates a whole new opportunity for our state to kind of carve our niche within floating technologies. We also need to participate with our neighbors in figuring out the transmission needs that are going to occur to bring all of this clean, renewable power onshore, and do it in a most cost-effective way that we can determine. But all of these are critical issues that the Commission is going to be looking at, and that people throughout the state and beyond should be considering and understanding, which, these are complex and broad issues, but by all means, they're certainly ones that we can figure out and that we need to figure out and move on quickly. So I don't want to miss, as Joe had said, I won't use the same boat analogy, but we don't want to miss out, because because the scale of this industry and the billions and billions of dollars that are going to be invested could be extremely transformative for our workforce, for our state, and certainly for our environment moving forward. And those are all important, critical issues that New Hampshire currently needs to be focusing on.
What can a citizen that's not necessarily within these industries do that might assist this process?
You know, so the best thing about the New Hampshire legislature is they actually listen to to their constituents, and you know, I would certainly call my representatives, ask them what they know about offshore wind, ask them if they're going to be involved with pushing this and driving this forward. Or ask them if it's going to be like our solar initiative, right? Where, we've missed out on a lot of generation and a lot of opportunities for our people, for lack of, our state legislature to work, towards incentivizing solar installation. With some 4,000 megawatts behind Massachusetts, which is a shame. And I did some quick math, and they've created over 3,600 electrical jobs in the solar industry alone since 2015. We only have 2,600 electricians working in the state of New Hampshire. They've created 3,600 just in the solar industry. So let's look at that, right? And this is job creation at its best. Good jobs, good workers, and this is both. This is all union and non-union. It doesn't matter. IBEW, this or that. We're putting people to work in great jobs and great industries. Contact your legislature. Be in favor of renewable energy sources, and ask them how you can help.
So beyond participating in beyond just voting, contacting your Senate and representatives, the House of New Hampshire, we got the biggest house. One of your neighbors is a House of Representative. And or supporting a Clean Energy New Hampshire, which Mike is a part of. Can you give us a quick brief on that, Mike?
Yeah, I would certainly recommend becoming a member of Clean Energy New Hampshire. We are trying to spearhead this issue, and there are other items. Contacting the governor, letting him know that you support this, that you support every aspect of this when it comes to workforce, job creation, or environmental protection. This really hits on all angles. Also, inquire at the community college. I mean, let people know, let your community know that you support this initiative, and participate in the state commission as well. It is the largest public comment organized commission to be able to allow the public to participate. And so, please get engaged, learn more, and figure out your own path too, and engage through a nonprofit. But there are a lot of ways that you can help support this effort as we move forward over the next 1, 2, 5, 10 years. This will be a long process, so we need everybody involved.
Well, I'd like to thank everybody out there, everybody that participated, Doug, Joe, Mike. Thank you for watching the show. Hopefully you'll watch us again. I do want to say that there are so many moving parts. We barely scratched what's going on. And it's happening fast. And not being the leader and in these industries, we can turn that from a negative into a positive, meaning other people have already accomplished many things with this. We don't have to learn this over. We can take what we know and apply it and make this industry and all the ones that need to exist to support it to be part of our economy. Thank you, everyone. Be safe. Be well.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.